respect, and the literature universal access that it ideally deserves. In other words, that no one has to miss out on the benefits of new research and discoveries because they can't afford to read it. So this has been quoted from BiomEd Central, which I'm sure all of you have pens for, which is a leading open access publisher of medical literature. So, can we have a show of hands as to those who agree with this statement? Put up your hands if you agree with this statement. Can we put up our hands for those who agree with this statement? That open access seeks to unlock research. Who doesn't want research unlocked? Who wants research locked to a few people? Okay, so all of us want research to be unlocked and to be accessible to everyone here. Is that true? Yes. So can we have a show of hands? Thank you. So, as it stands now, the public, especially people in developing countries, researchers, students and patients and doctors are all denied access to the research in their respective needs. They're all denied access. Let's watch a short clip that I have here.
Open access is free, immediate, online availability of research articles with full reuse rights. This is about, first of all, making all this content available for anyone, wherever they are in the world, to read and access and build upon, so people can do interesting things and work in new ways with the material to really make the research literature much more valuable.
The history of the model is really publishing scientific manuscripts, especially ones with complex, detailed color figures, was expensive. And so if you wanted your article distributed broadly and widely, you sent it to one of these journals, and then they would manage the review process and the communications with reviewers and revisions, and eventually something would be accepted they handled the typesetting and the printing and the distribution of your scientific work. And it worked. It worked great. Science progressed pretty well, and it became, a good way to distribute scientific papers. And what's changed is, really two things in essence. First is digitization. You can now do everything electronically instead of printing it. And the second is that the journals started ratcheting up the price of subscriptions to many of their journals. And so those two things came sort of to a head where it's become almost the theater of the absurd with the amount that some journals want libraries to pay to subscribe to the journal.
Research has shown that journal prices have actually outpaced inflation by over 250% over the past 30 years. There are over 15 entire academic disciplines where the average price for one journal is over $1,000 for one subscription for 1 year. Yeah, in chemistry, the average title is $4,227, in physics $3,649, and it even goes down into agriculture is still over $1,000, and geology and botany all over $1,000. And those are just the averages. Those aren't way out there. So there's a journal called Petrochetra that's $40,000.
The journals aren't producing the material. The journals don't employ the people who write the papers. They don't even employ the people who review the papers. And it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of what science is supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about discovering new things and spreading that knowledge around. It's so irrational to think that these scientists like me are paid by the government to do research and to discover things and distribute that. And then, 2 years of work by 20 people is going to be compressed into a paper and then not made available to people. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I think this problem of access to research is one that people run into all the time, but it's not one that they sort of realize. I know when I was a student, whenever I would be doing research and come across a great abstract and not have access to it, I just sort of moved on and thought, well, this is the way it is. I didn't really realize that there was a system behind this that was causing me to not have access. And I think students' educations literally depend on access to the journal literature. Professors can only teach what they have access to. If you look at less wealthy countries, like low and middle income countries, they're really, really struggle to get access. And, so that's a real impediment that prevents researchers in those countries from being able to either contribute fully or do world-class research.
I was not
even with this lack of access, and even with my brother starting the public library of science, I wasn't convinced. I didn't understand why this was a big deal. And then we had a family medical emergency, and I was up at 3 in the middle of the night in a hospital next to my wife in the hospital room, surfing the web on the crappy hospital wireless internet, and I was trying to find out information about a particular medical treatment, and I couldn't get access to the damn papers. And our doctors didn't know the answer to these particular questions, and we needed to decide about what to do with this medical treatment. And here I was, a trained scientist, with the ability to read and interpret and understand many of these papers. And I couldn't get that. And that was the moment for me. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Here's what the problem comes down to in most cases. And because in the hospital room, I bought dozens of articles. The problem is that you don't know which article is relevant until after you pay for it. The abstracts don't always make it clear what is contained in the paper. So there was no return policy, right? You can buy it and then say, this is wrong, I'm giving it back. So now are you going to spend $1,200 to just find out if possibly they're relevant? I mean, if you do that every day, you're in a big hole.
Not some